The Ocarina of Time decompilation appears to be complete. Now, if you're unaware, this is something that I've been following for a little while, mentioning it here and there in Newswave as it has progressed further and further and further. They've mostly given us different percentages, like it's 60% done, it's 80% done, oh, it's 95% done. Well, now it's actually out. Now, we've seen decompilations done before, actually with Nintendo's own games from the Nintendo 64. This one, though, is particularly interesting, which we're going to go over. And then it also opens the door to a bunch of other decompilations that are currently in the works. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawn Wave Plus channel, make sure you subscribe down below. So let's head over here. VGC has been covering this extensively. The entire timeline of events is logged on their website as this decompilation has worked towards its inevitable release. Now, the idea here with a decompilation is that a group will be able to take the game and reverse engineer the code into their own original code that would allow them to port it to different systems, in this case on PC. Now, Mario 64 famously had this done, and that's when we saw videos of the game popping up with higher resolution textures, ray tracing even, and it was kind of weird looking, right? Because you see Mario 64 and you're like, yeah, it's Mario 64, but it looks kind of weird because it's so modernized then. A full Zelda Ocarina of Time PC port is now complete and available online. Fan-made Zelda 64 PC version features HD graphics, modding support, widescreen, and more, which we can see an image of it here in widescreen. It's kind of stretched on the edges, but this is still very early on for its initial release. Now that it's out, the community is starting to get its hands on it and do different things. For example, some of the new feature with HD graphics, widescreen support, keyboard support, modding support, force feedback, and gyroscope aiming. So if you have the correct controller that has that built in, you could technically just kind of use gyro controls like you do in some of the more modern titles for the Switch. Now, they're also working on a couple of other improvements, things like text-to-speech, 60 FPS visuals, twin-stick camera controls, HD models, audio texture packs, Linux and Mac support for future updates. And the funny thing about this is you can see it ported to other systems. It could be ported to the Dreamcast. Seriously, it could get to that point. You can see it ported to a PlayStation 2 or something. Since they have now put it into a more port-friendly setup, they could do all kinds of stuff to this thing. And it is technically available now. You can check it out online. I'm not going to link to it because while the code itself is not viewed as illegal or anything like that, it's still Nintendo being Nintendo, and you can't really take too many chances with them. And that's the biggest thing, and the reason this is able to happen is because it's their original code. They're not using code that Nintendo may have a patent or copyright claim to. Now, VGC has been talking to the group who was able to do this reverse engineering, this decompilation, and apparently Ocarina of Time's decompilation was much easier, or at least faster, than what went down with Mario 64, which makes me wonder about other decompilations that are currently in progress, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But they say it's claimed its mod support for Zelda was far easier than Mario 64's PC version, thanks to features such as a scripting system similar to modern game engines. Our game has an asset loading pipeline much more similar to modern games. We have a resource manager that runs on a separate thread that loads assets from our archives. So at this point, prepare to see a bunch of different modifications and videos and stuff popping up online as this continues to progress now that it's out, which means you're going to see Ocarina of Time in a whole new light and able to be played even on your PC, and who knows where else people attempt to port it to. But because of this starting to gain popularity when it comes to decompiling seemingly N64 titles, now we're seeing more of these Nintendo 64 games kind of start to go through this same process, which Perfect Dark and Banjo-Kazooie could be the next N64 PC ports. They say more than 25 fan-made decompilation projects are currently in development. They say a decompilation of Perfect Dark being worked on by Ryan Dwyer is currently claimed to be just under 70%, with ports planned for not only the final PAL, NTSC, and Japanese release of the game, but also the NTSC and PAL beta versions. Paper Mario is also brought up here, about 60% complete, and Banjo-Kazooie decompilation sitting around 55% progress, and even Mario Kart 64 around 25%. Here's an entire list: Blast Core, Body Harvest, Bomberman 64, Conker's Bad Fur Day. That would be really cool. Mario Party 3, Paper Mario, Pokemon Stadium, Snowboard Kids. It's interesting to see how many are really starting to pick up now when it comes to doing this reverse engineer, and then also like move it to PC with new features, HD models, gyro aiming, all these different things. It's a pretty cool way to take a game that we've seen for decades now, but put it in a whole new light, and of course a bunch of new possibilities with it. I mean, who knows, with Mario Party 3, you may see full online play, even with something like Perfect Dark, which obviously multiplayer is the most popular thing for Perfect Dark, and we could have a full 60 FPS, 120 FPS version of Perfect Dark with HD textures, and then also be able to play online against other people. Like, a lot of possibility there with that title. I also noticed Dinosaur Planet on this list, which is what turned into Star Fox Adventure, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't know if they would reverse engineer as much of that as possible and release like a fully working PC port of that game, but that's one I wouldn't mind going back and checking out just to see what they had in mind for us. But this is still really cool to see overall, having these older Nintendo 64 titles that even if you plug it up to a TV with the best possible connection, Ultra HDMI or anything like that, still looks like a Nintendo 64 game. But having this decompilation process for these older titles really pick up in popularity means, I mean, the possibilities are endless here with some of these titles. So I'm curious about things like Perfect Dark or Conker's Bad Fur Day now and following that along. But now that we've seen Ocarina of Time be released, there's going to be a lot of interest in doing different modifications, improvements, all kinds of stuff here. So something to check out for yourself to see what you think of it. Like I said, it's available online. I'll link to VGC down below, and you can see what you think there. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.